Now that God has revealed himself, none of us are allowed to die. It was a Thursday when God revealed himself to all of humanity. The day started ordinary enough, but sometime in the afternoon, I felt a presence in my chest and a voice in my ear. "I have returned," the voice said. As it just so happened that everyone had heard that voice, everyone felt that presence, and soon everyone stepped out of their dwellings and looked up at the sky and saw the clouds disappear and a brilliant light shine for just an instant, a moment, a light so brilliant it couldn't have belonged to the sun and it had to have been something else. And it was clear. The feeling in our hearts was certain. The Lord was real, and he was here. After this momentous event, the world was never the same. People's behavior took a sharp turn. Everyone became much more cautious and kind, not because they had a genuine change of heart, but because they were terrified of God's wrath. Fights ceased, insults were held back, and judgments were withheld, all because no one knew what the consequences might be if they didn't. And then, a truly astonishing discovery was made: death had ceased to exist. Some people realized it when their terminally ill loved ones made miraculous recoveries. Scientists and statisticians later confirmed that deaths from all causes, natural disasters, accidents, diseases had dropped to an astounding zero. As time went by, a set of new commandments emerged that governed this new world order. The first was "Thou shalt not die by any means," like diseases or natural disasters. This was the most fundamental change. Then, there was the rule that people would be summoned to worship at completely random times. When this call came, there was no choice but to answer. I remember the night my mom was called. She calmly got up, said the Lord had summoned her, and insisted on walking to the worship site. My dad accompanied her, and returned the next day looking exhausted. He told us she was standing in a field along with many others. Another crucial commandment was that if you even attempted to kill another person, you would immediately be summoned to worship. I witnessed this firsthand in a street fight video. Two guys were going at it, but as soon as one of them was about to land a fatal blow, it was like something snapped in his head. They both stopped in their tracks, their expressions blank, and walked away single file to fulfill their summons. I decided to visit my mom at the worship site. It was a large field filled with people standing perfectly still, spaced evenly about 3 feet apart in every direction, all with their heads tilted slightly upwards. When I finally found her and tried to talk to her, she was not her usual self. She said she couldn't come home and urged me to leave quickly before I got trapped there too. A year later, another significant commandment became common knowledge: when thou art in worship, thou shalt not age. With more and more people being called to worship, these gatherings became a common sight in parks, beaches, city squares, everywhere. The world was changing rapidly, and a new term, worship grief, entered our vocabulary, describing the pain of losing someone to this eternal worship. But there was also an unspoken worship fear lurking in everyone's hearts. For years past, and around 30% of the global population was now in worship. My dad was among them. Sadly, I also discovered another harsh rule: if thou attempt to take thine own life, thou shalt immediately be summoned to worship. I walked in on my brother one day with a gun to his head. Before I could react, the gun